Treyarch lied to us about the identity of this character. All the way back in 2011, prior to the release of Call of Duty Black Ops' first DLC, First Strike, we received this poster. In the poster we see 4 characters wielding various wonder weapons. Front and centre we have Tank Dempsey wielding the Wonder Waff. To the right we have Takeo Masaki wielding the Winter's Howl, and beside him we see Nikolai Belinsky with the ray gun. So far, a pretty logical character lineup. That is of course until we look to the left of Dempsey, where we see a bald man in what seems to be a spacesuit holding the Thunder Gun. Fans immediately began to speculate as to who this character was, with the initial and completely logical assumption being that it was Richtofen, due to him being the final character from our core 4 who you would assume would be on the poster, though some theorise that this could potentially be a new character we'd yet to be introduced to. These theories would continue with the release of the first trailer for DLC 1, where we see a character wearing the same spacesuit and bearing a striking resemblance to the man on the poster, with one notable exception: he had hair, albeit very short hair. Upon the map's release, players would notice that each character had received an updated character model, being covered in more blood than in prior maps. However, one character had received a far more substantial change, that of course being Richtofen, who ditched his, shall we say, World War II German uniform in favour of a spacesuit, the very same spacesuit seen on the Bold Man in the First Strike poster. For most fans, this was more than enough evidence to conclude that the Bold Man on the First Strike poster was Richtofen, and that his lack of hair was presumably just a miscommunication between the developers and the artist who created the poster. This was a completely reasonable assumption, particularly due to the fact that up until this point, Richtofen's character model had always featured a hat, and as such no one actually knew what his hair looked like underneath, nor did they care for that matter. For the most part, this was viewed as an inconsequential minor inconsistency, and most fans moved on, completely ignoring and forgetting about this discrepancy. That was of course until 5 years later, when everyone's favourite no-nonsense guide dealer Mr. Rothwaffles sat down for an interview with the one and only Jason Blundell. In this interview, Mr. Rothwaffles would ask a seemingly random question that he and the rest of us were confident that we already knew the answer to.
Is Richtofen the bald man in the First Strike poster?
No.
What? 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 Are you? Is that a joke? It's a joke.
No, pass.
What? Oh my goodness, my ribs! Jesus!
Milo's reaction in this clip was mirrored by pretty much everyone in the community, with fans completely and utterly blindsided and caught off guard by this revelation. Fans immediately began theorising, and the entirety of the Zombies community was in a frenzy, desperately trying to figure out who the Bold Man on the First Strike poster was. Some theorised that it could be Dr. Monty, as at this point we'd yet to be fully introduced to him. Others theorised that it may be Maxis, due to the picture we see of him in the Origins intro cutscene where he's shown to be bald, though of course he also has a beard, which the man in the poster is clearly lacking. Some fans however would theorise that the Bold Man was none other than Dr. Anton Gersh, due to the fact that he's holding the Thunder Gun, and as we know from the story of Dr. Gersh, he worked directly on the production of the Thunder Gun during Project Thunder. I have a full video covering the story of Dr. Gersh on the channel, which I highly suggest checking out after this one, as they tie together quite nicely. The link between the Bold Man, the Thunder Gun, and Gersh was seemingly the most logical connection to be made so far, and as such this became the predominant theory as to the identity of the Bold Man. In true Blundell fashion, Jason would continue to taunt and tease the community by insinuating that we may learn more about the identity of the Bold Man in DLC 4 for Black Ops 3, Revelations. But of course we now know that there was no new information to be found on that map at all, and this is where my skepticism in regards to the things that Blundell says begins to creep in, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Following the end of Black Ops 3's life cycle and the subsequent poor performance of Infinite Warfare, rumours began to spread about the possibility of a 5th DLC coming to Black Ops 3 to make up for any losses. These rumours were all put to rest when on the 4th of May 2016, Jason Blundell sat down with Zombies YouTuber JC Backfire to make a surprise announcement.
Alright,
This is where the serious journalism kicks in.
so you've kind of just stopped by
Yes.
and you're just here for no reason. You got some reason to be here, right? You got something.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of talk in the
There's
community.
no lot of talk.
A lot of talk in the community. You know, and it's, you know, it's so hard sometimes to really think about, you know, what kind of topics to talk about when you kind of go and visit someone. So I think the most important thing to talk about would be
You're wearing that shirt the whole time.
Zombie Chronicles.
Oh my god. That's an amazing name, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Zombies Chronicles was now confirmed and was set to feature 8 fully remastered maps, including of course Ascension. Fans and theorists immediately began to discuss the possibility that in this remaster we may finally learn the true identity of the Bold Man from all those years ago, and in many ways they were absolutely right. On the 11th of May, the reveal trailer for Zombies Chronicles would release, showing off all of the maps in their fully refreshed glory. However, one thing stood out to fans more than anything else, that being that in the Ascension portion for the trailer we were shown Dr. Edward Richtofen, who unlike in the Black Ops variant of the map, was no longer wearing a spacesuit and was back to his usual German attire. If Jason's words weren't proof enough, this one distinct change confirmed that Richtofen and the Bold Man were not the same character, and as such the discussion into who he truly was had been fully reignited, with most still concluding that it was likely Gersh. Fans wouldn't have to wait long to receive a full confirmation, as shortly after the release of Zombies Chronicles a new radio had been discovered on Ascension.
Soviet technology, but the Ruskies really pulled one out of the bag that time. The Ascension group built a bloody great rocket. It actually worked a treat, too. You remember Gersh, bald guy? He fought alongside you for a while. I think Richthofen was off somewhere at the time. Anyway, Gersh ran into a little bit of dimensional distortion. Honestly, why do you insist in meddling with stuff you don't understand? Of course, all their experiments just stirred the reality soup even more. You ended up fighting monkeys. Space monkeys at that. As I'm sure you know, monkeys are thieving little bastards. Give them half a chance and they'll nick anything that isn't nailed down. So, in answer to a question Richthofen once asked, I don't love a monkey.
This radio out and out confirmed that the Bald Man was in fact Dr. Gersh, and it also revealed that at some point throughout their multiversal travels, our crew had been ditched by Richthofen and began fighting alongside Gersh in the interim before his return. This revelation stunned the community, with everyone scrabbling to make sense of it all, and trying to piece together when this alliance could have potentially occurred. And this is where I finally come to the ultimate point of this video. There is no possible way that this team up could have happened, both from a timeline perspective and from a logical one. We know thanks to the official Call of Duty Zombies timeline that there was no point in time where Optimus Richthofen left the other 4 characters unattended whilst Gersh was still in his physical form. Now, I know what you're saying. We know the timeline's incomplete and is missing certain details due to the fact that we know the events of Classified took place between Shangri-La and Moon, yet these events are nowhere to be seen on the timeline. And to that I have to say, I agree. It is technically feasible that this crossover may have taken place and is for one reason or another absent from the timeline, though I would be inclined to say that such an interaction being missing is extremely unusual and highly unlikely. We know thanks to said timeline that our characters first travel through time following the events of Derice, where Dempsey overloads the teleporter by firing the Wonderwaffe, causing them to be sent through both time and space, ultimately arriving at the Kino facility in Germany on October 28, 1963. We also know thanks to the timeline that Yuri pushes Gersh into the Gersh device on November 5, 1963. This gives the crew a mere 8 days to travel from Berlin, Germany to somewhere in the Soviet Union via Lunar Lander, and then proceed to go and fight alongside Gersh on an unknown and never before mentioned side quest. Further to this, we also know that Gersh and our crew cannot possibly have interacted prior to the map Ascension, as at no point throughout the map's main quest Easter egg, which is entirely focused around Gersh, does he nor any of our characters acknowledge the fact that they know each other, which would be extremely unbelievable, seeing as according to Dr. Monty in the radio, they fought alongside each other not just for a short time, but rather a while. This becomes even stranger when we consider that in the map Gorod Krovi, when we see Gersh again, this time playing as the Primus crew, who look and behave far differently from their Optimus counterparts might I add, Gersh recognises them immediately, despite having not seen these characters in a near infinite amount of time, as he'd been stuck aimlessly wandering the multiverse as an ethereal being. So for Gersh to not recognise them in Ascension after fighting alongside each other for a while is completely ludicrous. All of this, in my opinion, goes to prove that despite what Monty and Jason Blundell have said, there is no possible or logical way that such a team-up could have ever taken place. So then who is the Bald Man on the First Strike poster? Well, despite my doubts about our crew and Gersh having fought alongside one another, we have no actual reference for what Gersh looks like, as his appearance has no impact on the story, and as such it's impossible to rule out visually at least that the Bald Man isn't Dr. Gersh. That being said, I wholeheartedly believe that the Bald Man on the poster is none other than Edward Richthofen, and that his lack of hair is as first presumed nothing more than a simple miscommunication between the artist and the developers. I believe this because not only does it make complete logical sense that Richthofen will be on the poster alongside the other 3, as opposed to some random new character who at this point we hadn't even met, but also because when you compare Richthofen's Black Ops 1 character model to the man on the First Strike poster, aside from the hair they are literally identical, from the blood splatters to the spacesuit, all the way down to the holster on his hip. I believe that in no uncertain terms this definitively proves that the Bald Man on the poster is simply an artist's interpretation of Ascension Richthofen. And finally, to address those of you who I'm sure are already commenting about the change to Richthofen's outfit in Zombies Chronicles, this can simply be explained by the fact that the Chronicles maps canonically take place in an extremely similar yet ultimately different reality to that of the original universe. Hence the appearance of new features such as Gobblegums, Wonder Fizz, Samantha's music box Easter eggs, Dr. Monty radios, and even the appearance of the Shadow Man, who you'll occasionally see lurking in the background of maps. With all of that said, there is still one lingering point that remains. Why? Why would Treyarch feel the need to include such an odd and inexplicable detail to the story? And to answer that, I think it all comes down to a few simple things. First and most important of which being that the zombie story has always been a constantly adapting and evolving storyline, with narrative threads being picked up and dropped and changed consistently throughout its development. There is no way that upon the release of Ascension that Jimmy Zielinski and the rest of the team would have any idea that in 5 years' time Jason Blundell would come out in an interview and make a baseless claim about an obscure detail from a promotional poster. Further to that, we're all extremely aware at this point to the fact that Jason Blundell loves to throw the community small tidbits of information that he sometimes hasn't even fully realised the vision for yet himself, in the hopes that it'll all make sense at some point, which we of course know that it sometimes doesn't, hence the many plot holes and inconsistencies found throughout our beloved story. By no means do I intend for this to be slanderous towards Jason, as his personality, storytelling methods, and community engagement are fundamental to what made the Zombies community so great in its prime, though it would be both false and foolish to say that his methods and narrative were always fully concrete and precisely pre-planned, hence the inclusion of these minor details. Anyway, I think I've rambled enough about the identity of a man on a near 15-year-old poster. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more like it, and be sure to check out my other videos on the channel. I'm sure there'll be more you enjoy. Also be sure to let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments below, as I always love reading through all of your perspectives and ideas. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and take it easy.